Blues win after another very impressive performance. I thought the Canucks came out flying to start the game off, but the Blues, heavy style, laid into them. Their game plan worked to perfection. The Canucks just couldn't keep a consistent effort, and the Blues kept steamrolling them all the way through the end. Let's break it down now. In the first period, the Canucks were doing quite well, getting few offensive faceoffs, buzzing around. There was a cheap can opener hit on Horvat, sending him hard into the boards. I was a little bit worried he might come out injured. By the way, I'm obviously a Canucks fan, and this game breakdown is going to be from a very heavy Canucks perspective. Ben had plenty of time, and he fired an initial breakout pass so hard at the winger on the boards that actually caused a turnover and a chance. So Ben was struggling to start. Fantenberg, I thought, had a couple great strong opening shifts. Hughes had a beautiful move where he was in the Blues defensive zone. He pulls the Blues forward over and then passes between the Blues forward leg. Roussel can't handle it, and Hughes goes in again to make something happen. Miller did not look good early on in the game, and overall I think he had a pretty mediocre game by his standards. He seems to be really suffering from the effective checking of St. Louis's top defensive lines. And I don't blame him. He's going up against last year's Selke winner and Conn Smythe winner. Patterson, Besser, and Miller just really couldn't get too many things done. They had a few moments where they were buzzing around, a few dangerous chances, but overall St. Louis has had a very effective answer to them. Patterson is still learning to find his way through the tighter playoff checking, but I think Besser and Miller really need to support him and elevate their game. Horvat line had some good moments, especially in the opening frame, causing a lot of pressure, forechecks, drawing penalties. A huge improvement for the Canucks, mostly for the first period and the first half of the game, is that their defensive zone breakouts were much better and where they needed to be. Last game, St. Louis just ended up all over the Canucks, hemming them in, causing their defensemen to just throw the puck away. A lot of needless giveaways, but this time the Canucks had a plan. They were set. They had their defenders and wingers on the wall to give their back defensemen with the puck a lot of options. They had other forwards moving around to create a lot of movement so they could actually start a breakout. Much improved. However, later on in the game, with St. Louis really getting their big guns going, throwing their weight around, playing their game, they did start to neutralize this and once again dominate in the Canucks zone. When the rough stuff started to get going, I bet Benning was pretty happy that Beagle, Sutter, and Roussel and Pearson were really providing everything that he hoped for. That veteran, tough leadership in the bottom six to help out the younger top six talented guys. Once the Blues really started to roll, the Canucks struggled to keep any sort of consistency. You'd see flashes from Patterson, from Miller, from Horvat, here and there. Even Tyler Mott was doing his best, but he's not a top-end guy. But the problem was the Canucks really lacked that depth, whereas St. Louis was rolling all these lines and punishing the Canucks and keeping some sustained pressure, tilting the ice in their direction. The Canucks lacked that consistency, not having 3 or 4 offensive lines. Sutter is reliable, but he's not going to provide a lot of offense. Beagle is going to provide 0 offense. Virtanen was inconsistent in the first half of the game. Picked it up in the later half, but it just wasn't enough to really create those kind of swing moments that you need to come back against such a deep and tough team like St. Louis. Let's do the player reviews. JT Miller scored a big goal, but ultimately I think this wasn't a great game for him. A lot of pucks were bouncing off his stick, a lot of giveaways. He really struggled on the forecheck and winning board battles. He needs to be better if he's going to help Patterson and Besser be that effective first line they need. Patterson, I thought he's shown improvement. He's learning how to play in the tight checking of the playoffs. He had a lot more dangerous chances this game than last, but still he's going to need more help from Miller and Besser around him. I think sometimes Patterson, just like we saw with Ovechkin a few years before he won the Cup, Ovechkin would sometimes be guilty of trying to do too much on his own, carry the puck in over the blue line, run into 3 players, and lose it. And sometimes Patterson was doing that. Maybe that's because the players around him weren't up to his level this game, but this is a learning process for him. This is what we wanted. I mean, we have to remember that these are the defending Stanley Cup champions. They're still a great team, and now they're just getting warmed up. They obviously weren't warmed up in that round robin that were basically glorified or even worse than exhibition games, whereas the Canucks just came out of a playoff type atmosphere series against Minnesota. So Pettersson's learning. This is what we want from the Canucks, to face off against a team, to learn exactly what it takes to win the playoffs. And I think Pettersson's going to improve throughout the series, and it's going to be a great learning experience for him, win or lose. Besser. I really like to see this shot. He's struggled to get shots in the playoffs. The way he's being deployed, I don't know if he needs to be with a different center on a different side of the ice, especially in the power play. I'd really like to see him in a place where he can actually shoot. They have him behind the net all the time. They have Miller with his back towards the net half the time, and he's like this really awkward left side. And they keep trying to throw the puck over to Pettersson for the Ovechkin one-timer. But the problem is that Hughes is at the top. So there's not enough movement from the pass from Hughes to Pettersson, and the goalie knows it's coming. So I like the talent on that power play, but it just does not seem effective in the way that they have it set up. I like Besser's effort. He took a bad penalty. But he's just not getting himself into the situations where he can shoot. There were several times this game where he felt like he was just about to have it, but it was on his backhand, and he wasn't able to stick out into position to give himself that quick release. Not great for him. Tanner Pearson, he was fantastic. This guy hits, he plays deep. He absorbed a big monster hit while lugging the puck up from the Canucks end. You were expecting to see him go tumbling over, like we've seen so many Canucks players get hit by these heavy Blues guys, and he just absorbed it like it was nothing and continued to play on. The guy can shoot. He's great on Horvat's wing. He's great in the playoffs. I love having him. Bo Horvat didn't have any of the heroics of the earlier games, but played tough, made some things happen. Could be held down by Eriksson, who I thought was fine. We'll get to him. Not a huge game for Horvat, but overall, he didn't make a lot of mistakes, and I think he was trying to make some things happen, but there just wasn't enough momentum in this game for the Canucks. Eriksson didn't do a lot of things wrong, like usual, but there's so many times where you think if he was just a little bit faster, a little bit younger, a little more with it, he could have had a lot more dangerous scoring chances or goals. But the way he is right now, he's not going to hurt you defensively, but when he is taking up that top six position, he could be holding down Horvat and Pearson. I'd like to see him pop in one goal, because I think the fan base has actually grown to almost ironically like him in his big $6 million contract and his nickname of Little Things Louie. Antoine Roussel. His biggest moment in the game was finishing a check on a St. Louis Blues shooter in the Canucks zone. Big Sammy Blaze, this huge, muscly bottom six forward we've heard so much about that is so important to the Blues lineup and their offense and their game. He comes in to help out, and Roussel drops his glove so fast that Blaze doesn't even know what's happening. Roussel's throwing punches, slams the guy down to the ice in about 10 seconds. Could you just imagine if that was at GM Place or whatever they call it now? That's when I really missed hearing the crowd. Brandon Sutter with another solid game, didn't make very many mistakes. Real calm out there, moves the puck in, a lot of zone entries, but not really creating a lot of offense. Didn't get too many dangerous chances this time, and isn't very great at setting other people up on his line. He's great at holding leads and would be the greatest fourth line center, but when you're behind and you need to create some offense, it's not great when Sutter and Beagle are your two other centers going over the boards. Zach McEwen. The last game and this one I think were pretty rough for him. He had some alright plays, but a lot of the time I think he was doing more harm than good out there. I think his hockey IQ is not really where it needs to be, so he's not effectively using his speed and his size and his ability to shoot. I think he's a bit of a liability out there right now. I would like to see Gaudette maybe coming in somewhere, keeping Virtanen on that fourth line, putting Gaudette on the wing, or even trying him back on center just to get a little bit more offensive pop when they need to crawl back, like in a game tonight. Tyler Mott. I'm liking this guy every game. He looked very confident in this game. I saw him anticipating offensive moves, cycling around, trying to figure out dangerous places to be to make things happen. He was great defensively, offensively. You can't ask for more for a fourth line left winger. And the way that Green's been deploying them, he ends up playing a bit more of a bottom six sort of utility, interchangeable third line. He's been fantastic. I think he's actually been influencing Virtanen, who looked to play a lot smarter this game. So, good job, Mott. Jay Beagle had another very dependable game. A lot of smart plays, solid out there. Helped Mott create some chances, and Virtanen fine as a fourth line center, but again, Beagle is not going to be producing any kind of offense when you need to dig yourself out of a hole. Jake. I was pretty hard on him in the first half of the game, but I think in the second half, he really came alive. He was using his speed a bit more. Sometimes he would come up so fast on a puck behind a Blues defender that he sort of surprised everyone, including himself. And he would hesitate before grabbing the puck. And it's kind of frustrating because you see that he can get himself into these positions, but he doesn't quite have the hockey sense to know exactly how to utilize all these tools that he has. But he did have a very strong second half of the game, and I was really hoping he could have put one in to spark a big comeback for them. There were a few times where the Blues were dominating several shifts in a row, and Virtanen came on and sometimes would single-handedly stop the bleeding, get the puck out of the zone, and get things going the right way for the Canucks. I think this was a pretty good game for Virtanen, although this was him exceeding as a fourth-line right winger. So either he elevates his game further and grabs a spot on the third line, or they bring in Gaudette and they do some sort of a third line A, third line B situation with Virtanen, Roussel, Sutter, Mott, Gaudette, Beagle. On defense, I thought Edler had another pretty rough game. He was looking a lot stronger in the first half of it, but whether it's just getting run down or beaten up or just facing extremely stiff competition, he started regressing back into chipping pucks out as soon as he could get them without thinking of how they were going to move the puck out of the zone. I think Edler is a fantastic second pairing guy or second defenseman, but he just had far too many issues, and I don't know if you can just blame that all on him. I just seemed to notice that he was giving the puck away. Could be an overall team thing, and St. Louis just breathing down the necks, and he just seems to be the one that ends up giving it away and taking the bad penalty. Whatever it is, he seems to get the most responsibility. He had 20 minutes of ice time behind Quinn Hughes' 28 minutes. However, Quinn Hughes did have 9 minutes on the power play. Troy Stecher. I thought Stecher had a pretty good game. He used his speed very effectively, made a lot of smart plays. Ideally, you don't want to have Stecher playing this many minutes, but with Myers out, I think he filled in very, very well. Tanev had a very solid game. I didn't notice him too much, which for defensive defensemen usually means they're doing things right. He's obviously not a big flashy player, so the less you notice him making any mistakes, the better. He had a great 5-on-3 penalty kill with Beagle and Edler. That's another time where I really missed the crowd noise. I think they would have been going crazy for the work they did. They kept a nice big box. Markstrom ended up with a good save, and they limited anything super dangerous coming their way. Fantenberg had another great game as a third-pairing defenseman. I love this guy. He had some strong opening shifts. They did give him a pretty weak penalty. The announcer said it was a good boarding call. I don't know. I feel like that's how St. Louis has been finishing all their checks against the Canucks, and I haven't seen any boarding calls on them. But other than the penalty, I thought he was fantastic. He had a lot of great moments where he was laying big hits, taking control in the defensive zone. Great breakouts, nice passes, even leading the rush a few times, pushing it up into the zone, creating some chances, making things happen. I think Fantenberg was just fantastic. Ben started out really shaky with that hard breakout pass, but he seemed to settle down. He played more minutes than Fantenberg. I don't know how that happens. Probably a special teams thing. But he was pretty solid. He worked well with Fantenberg. They were laying big hits. I think they were helping stem the tide of the Blues' physical onslaught of forecheck. And that's what you need. They were stopping that momentum, calming the Canucks down. This is the third pairing going out there and doing that, being solid, calming things down, and starting to push the momentum back the other way. And Markstrom, he was fantastic this game. A lot of huge saves. I think this game could have easily been 5 goals, 6 goals for St. Louis, but Markstrom looked fantastic, stopping a lot of dangerous shots, controlling rebounds, keeping things to the outside, not losing his cool, dealing with a lot of big St. Louis Blues in his crease, getting frisky, talking to the refs, but keeping his cool. I thought he was fantastic. It's too bad the Canucks couldn't get the win for him, but he definitely wasn't the reason they lost this one. Next game coming up, we're all evened up. Will the young Canucks team be rattled? Will St. Louis start taking it easy? It did seem like they were loosening up a little bit in the last 10 minutes of the game. It's a punishing style the Blues play, and it's punishing on their bodies as well. So we'll see if the Canucks can find it within themselves to sneak out another win, or who knows, maybe even win a ginormous series for them. Whatever happens with them, this has been a great test to face the previous Stanley Cup champions, a big grinding team, a team they needed to know if they could get past, if they ever want to win a Stanley Cup with this core. Enjoy the next game.